Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to my channel once again. So today we are discussing the poetry of Robert Frost. So we'll be discussing his life, his achievements and his famous poem, The Road Not Taken. Robert Lee Frost was an American poet. His work was initially published in England before it was published in America. Known for his realistic depiction of rural life and his command of American colloquial speech, Frost frequently wrote about settings from rural life in New England in the early 20th century, using them to examine complex social and philosophical themes. Robert Frost was born in San Francisco to journalist Prescott Frost Jr. Frost's father was a teacher and later an editor. Frost published his first poem in high school magazine. He attended Dartmouth College but could not continue with it. Then he was forced to do small jobs and he had even to work with his mother in her school teaching career. In his adult years, he sold his first poem, My Butterfly, an elegy, to New York Independent. So it was his first handsome income from that newspaper. Frost married Eleanor Marion White in Massachusetts. His grandfather purchased a farm soon before his death, and Frost, since he was free, he was asked to work on that farm, and Frost continued to work on that farm for 9 years. And after those 9 years, his farming, it grew very successful that Frost later came back and joined his teaching career where he switched some institutions. He was a renowned teacher and he was invited in many universities for his talk. His personal life was not a good one. He suffered many tragedies, beginning with the death of his father, who died in 1885 when Robert Frost was merely 11 years old. So his father died of TB, leaving only $8 behind with the family. Later his mother died of cancer in 1900, and then his sister, she was mentally retarded and had to go to mental hospital where she died after 9 years. Frost suffered depression, and even his own daughter, she was mentally retarded and had to be sent to a mental hospital. So his life was full of tragedies, and we see some imprints of his own life in his works. So as far as the works of Robert Frost are concerned, his works are hallmark of literature. He has written so many beautiful poems, and those poems are widely read and they are widely quoted. Birches stopping by wood on a snowy evening, An Old Man's Winter Night, Death of a Hired Man, Road Not Taken. And the Road Not Taken by Frost is a poem that Frost is known for. So this poem keeps Robert Frost alive. Out of his themes, there are certain prominent themes that we are talking today. So his first prominent theme is snow. Since Frost was living in New England, and the farm where he spent his time, that was also in New England, where he wrote many poems for 9 years. So snow was a natural object, a natural phenomena that was all the time there. So his poetry reflects this phenomena quite often, and he treats snow as a symbol that hides everything. And then there is conflict. We find conflict in Robert Frost's every poem that we read. For example, the poem that we are to study today, The Road Not Taken, that is a conflict of choices. His poem Birches, that is having a conflict of whether to go to escapism or not to go. And then stopping by woods on a snowy evening, that is also a conflict between choices. So most of his poems are having conflict in them. Then he is said to be a regional poet. Since he spent most of his time in New England, so all the depictions, all the sceneries, all the scenario that he sees there, he writes them in his poetry. So he's called the regional poet of America because he talks about his region. He talks about the very place where he spent most of his time of his life. Frost is an escapist, so we find the theme of escapism in his poetry. To some extent, he is an escapist. Though he is not an escapist like John Keats, who wants to go to the world of Nightingale, but he doesn't want to come back. But Robert Frost doesn't want to go for not returning ever. He knows that Earth is the fit place to live and love. And then there is isolation. Since his own life was isolated, he spent most of his life alone. So we find isolation a big theme in his poems. And then nature. So nature is, which is replete in that New England area. Snow, nature, and the particular trees to that particular environment, the particular plants that he talks about, the particular animals, birds. So all the scenes of nature, they inspire Robert Frost to this extent that all the poems are referring to nature in one way or another. Robert Frost is never forgotten because his poetry is always alive. So during his lifetime, he received Pulitzer Prizes for 4 times. So in 1924, for his collection, New Hampshire, a poem with notes and grace notes. In 1931, for collected poems. In 1937, for a further range. In 1943, for a witness tree. He was titled as Poet Laureate of Vermont. He was nominated for Nobel Prize 31 times. So this shows how great a poet he was. And President Kennedy, he used quite famous remarks for Robert Frost. He said that Robert Frost is our national poet. So this is a big compliment for Robert Frost coming from the mouth of an American president. 2 roads diverge in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that passing there, had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere, ages and ages hence, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So in this poem, Robert Frost talks about a conflict. So the conflict here is a conflict of choice. So he says that he's standing at such a place where he is having 2 roads before him, and there is a jungle, and it seems autumn season since it is yellow wood. So there were 2 roads that were diverging in that forest, and the poet, when he looks at both the ways in the morning, he comments that I am sorry that I cannot go the both ways. I cannot travel on these two roads at the same time. So I definitely need to choose one road in order to travel. So since he is one traveler, he stands for some time and he thinks which road should he choose. And then he looks at one road and he looks at as far as he can look at it. And he keeps looking at the road till it bends itself and is disappeared in the forest, in the jungle. So then he takes the other road as just as fair. So that road is just as good as the previous road that he was looking at, that was bending itself into the forest. So looking at the other road, he feels that both the roads are better. Both the roads are the same. But the second road perhaps has some better claim. And why that road had a better claim? Because it was grassy and wanted wear, because there were not much traveling on that road, because that route was to some extent a new route, or people did not use that way quite often. So the people preferred the first route, the first road that was bending in the undergrowth. So the poet likes the second road because it is a new way. It is a new beginning, a new start, a new place that may move to some new destination. So he is influenced by the second road. And though as for the passing there had warned them really about the same, because if people keep walking on this road too, then there will be no difference between both the roads. So the only difference between both the roads at this time is that this road is like the road that he is liking, the second road, that is a not traveled by road. People do not travel on this road quite often as much as they travel on the first road that he looked at when he came there. And both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. So it was time of morning in the season of autumn. So in that autumn season, the whole night the trees kept shedding their leaves on the roads. So in the morning time, both the roads were covered with the leaves of the trees, and no passenger, no traveler from the countryside, from the city has traveled any of these roads till now. So both of these roads were looking like same, and both had the better claim, but the poet chose the second road because it influenced him, since it was not adopted by many people. So the poet says, "Oh, I kept the first for another day." So the sign of exclamation in the end and the line that begins with "oh," that shows that this was an error of judgment. So this error of judgment here is in a way that is very much obvious from the word he uses, "oh," and the sign of exclamation too. So this shows that his choice was the wrong choice, maybe. So we'll come to know at the end whether the choice was right or wrong. So, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. So when he was choosing the second road, he said, I kept the first for another day. I postponed traveling on the first road and chose to travel on the second road, and thought in mind that next time when I am here, I may be traveling on the first road. But he then says, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I knew this thing, that sometimes the ways are so complex that once you have chosen a way, that will take you and to such labyrinths that you may not be able to come back. And he was doubting this thing while making a choice, that he may not be able to come back. And then he says in the last stanza, I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, that after a great time, after a time that has passed, when my choice may have created some differences in my life, that the word sigh sounds terrible. Now, this is not something, a happy remark. This is not something that I express with sigh, that I'm passing the exam. No, we do not use this phrase in a way. So he says, I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. From now, after 10 years, 20 years, I may be telling this story to someone. The story that I am beginning today, the story that I am starting today, the travel that I am starting today, I may be telling about this travel, this choice, this error, if this is an error. So I'll be telling about this after 10 years, 15 years to someone. The two roads diverged in a wood. That there was a time when I had a choice. I had a chance to make a choice. I had to choose between two. And I. Now this hyphen. Now this shows that he's again making a regret here. I took the one less traveled by. But I chose the road which was not traveled by many people, which was comparatively a newer way, which was some new way to some new destination. And that has made all the difference. So, after going through all that, now whatever has happened to me, that is because of that choice which I made. And that time I had a chance whether to take the first road or second road. But this time, when all my fate is reshaped, now I cannot go back and make a choice again. So here the poem is apparently about a traveler who is traveling through a jungle, and he watches two roads and he makes a choice, or he has to make a choice from one of them, and then he chooses one road and then he makes his travel, and then the results are there and he shares his result of those travel with his friends. So now this poem is having in-depth meanings as well, and there could be many possible interpretations. I'll be giving you two interpretations, so one at materialistic level and one at divine level. So at materialistic level, sometimes we have to make choices, and those choices can be good, can be right, can be wrong. So we have to be very judicious in making those choices. We have to be very careful while making the choices. So those choices could be anything related to your life. Those choices could be where you need to study, what you need to study, whom to marry, where to do your job, how to earn money, or like who to make your friends. All these things are your choices, and these choices belong to your life. Now, if a person who was not good at literature, and rather he was expert in mathematics, he chose literature for 4 years. So that was a time when he was taking admission that he could choose between maths and English. So after spending 4 years in English, when he proved to be a failure, so now this was a time when he was telling his friends, yes, I had a chance that I could opt between BS English or BS Mathematics, but I chose BS English, and that has made all the difference. And whatever we do, whatever job we do, whatever plan we do, if we are having two courses in front of us and we choose one course out of them without thinking, without making a judicious planning, without taking the help of others, so sometimes we are mistaken. And then when we realize those mistakes, it is always too late. Then we can only remember and regret. Then there is nothing else we can do. And as far as divine or religious interpretations are concerned, God has given us two ways. One is good, one is bad, one is right, one is wrong, one is evil, and one is virtue. So God has told us what way is good and what way you need to follow. So we have always the two choices. Now this is the fate that God has given in the hand of man, that man reshapes his own destiny. Man creates his own destiny. So if I am having my destiny in my hand, so I need to choose whether I'll be following the evil way or good way. So if I am following the evil way, the time when I am dead and when I feel that my forgiveness is not possible, then I'll be afraid of hell, I'll be afraid of damnation, I'll be afraid of being damned forever. So this is how the difference is made. God has given us clearly the right path and the wrong path too. Now, it is up to us what path we are following. So if we are following good path, we'll be having good destination, or if we are following bad path, we'll be ending up at bad destination. So this is a moral lesson for the lives of all of us, that if at materialistic level or at divine level, whatever choices we have, we need to be very judicious in making those choices, because our choices reshape our character, our choices reshape our destiny, our choices reshape our ending. Thank you very much. I hope you liked the lecture. So we'll be coming with more poems of Robert Frost. Stay tuned, subscribe the channel, and please press the bell icon. Thank you very much.